Hello, this is an environmental science book summary by Purdon and Anderson. All living organisms require energy to live. The sun is the basic source of life, as animals eat other forms of plant or other animals. Energy is passed on to one organism to another in the system. Photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water are used to make sugar and oxygen. So into two steps, the plants there, that's the sun there, and two steps, dark reaction and light reaction. The light reaction is the chlorophast organelles within the cells of the plants, are then transformed into chemical energy. This is coupled with the bonds of chemical compounds in the chloroplast. Dark reaction, it breaks the dark reaction is it bonds chemical into free carbon and oxygen. Chemical breaks the chemical bonded. Then the carbon combines with hydrogen and oxygen to form sugar. Cellular respiration organelle of the cell, which is the mitochondrion, basically is a subcellular level of its own organization, breaks down the glucose for survival and passes on the rest of the animals to eat. So that's the basics of that. Now two words: aerobic and anaerobic. Basically, the top one, aerobic organisms, are ones that use oxygen in respiration, and most bacteria, earthworms, fish and people, things like this. And then the anaerobic, they use oxygen from the compounds such as nitrate and sulfate, so secondary oxygen, so through the compounds nitrate and sulfate, breakdown of compounds. Anaerobic organisms are essential to life, helping break down food in digestive tracts of many organisms, including humans, and decompose organic matter in lake sediments, landfill, and sewage treatment plants, such as swamp gas, tetanus, and gangrene are caused by anaerobes. Fermentation, an anaerobic respiration, inhibiting microorganisms that cause decay. So this fermentation is examples of them. Cereal crops that farmers use and hay that farmers use and grass, preserving them for animals in winter season. And then now I'll talk about a bit about the soil of in nature in the world, the soil. So another word is detritic life cycle, or the detritus food web, and they from that is macro decomposers and micro decomposers. Pretty much when an animal dies or such, decomposer organisms such as earthworms and beetles begin the process. And then the secondary micro decomposers, bacteria and fungi, they finish the process in the soil. So importantly, you'll mention people mention say like fungi and like bacteria all the time, like with science, and that's a micro decomposer. If you need to know that, and that's what I learned through the detritic food web of soils. Basic biomes of nature. Early developmental stages of a grassland, the respiration rate, which I mentioned before, is the got to do with the photosynthesis, and just the respiration just means what the energy is required just for the plant to live, and that's the community is lower than its gross productivity. Leaves new productivity high when that respiration rate is lower than the gross productivity, like the outcome of the biome, that means it leaves no productivity high and leaves a lot of new energy that can be removed. Climax communities, such as mature forests, they leave little energy left over, supplying that needs life, and species diversity high in those mature forests. Vegetation contains most of the nutrients. If removed, the soil does not contain many nutrients for survival of plants and animals. Ecotones mean the boundaries of them biomes. Two or more different communities of biomes, whether integrated or sharply defined divisions, interactions between organisms within different ecosystems occur, is labeled as an interphase. So as we know in nature, and I described in my first book review, nature has interphases of biomes. They're always changing, however slow or fast, and this means that one biome does not always stay the same. Measuring of sorry, I'm just talking while I'm doing this. Measuring of the environment can be done through cybernetics, self-regulating feedback mechanisms such as animals' blood content. Animals' blood, body temperature, state of equilibrium or homeostasis. Homeostasis. That's only one example. And then some game biologists, as in the game mathematical equation, can be modeled in ecosystems, but this must be very difficult. Modeling is predictive and descriptive. It requires most info possible, and it gets easier with less complicated ecosystems. Computer data banks needed to be compared into the field of knowledge of accuracy as time changes. Land classification mapping shows soil types, drainage systems, wildlife habitats updated with aerial photos and ground checks. So that's got to do with the feedback of environmental science. So if you'd like, just slow down the video or something and remember those computer data banks and ways of classification of maps. Symbiosis, an example of symbiosis, pretty much an example of that is you'll see the birds on rhinos. They'll also, or like a bit large animal, they'll eat the insects, and then they'll get free food, and then the rhino will thanking them by letting them stay on their backs and for shelter from predators, I guess. Yeah, and so that's symbiosis. And another example is fungi in soil for trees' roots. Soil types. Of the world. I'll start with laterite or laterization. Laterite is a tough, hard surface in some tropical regions when vegetation is removed in order to form. Soil makes unfit for grain crops. Excellent for trees though it's excellent for trees. Long growing species, such as trees, allowing minerals cycles to be maintained. Secondly, podzolization takes place in coniferous forests. Water falls on litter, becomes acidic, leaching away many minerals. Doesn't support very productive crops in this one of soil types. Calcification, Chernozemic soils of grasslands. So when this one is less rain and less minerals removed from the soil, animal decays, adds organic matter, very desirable this one is. For agriculture. Erosion now of these three, removing natural vegetation and the litter debris increase cropland erosion. Plant on land contours as a tip of an environmentalist or agriculturalist is planting on land contours. Mineral elements essential for plant growth, except oxygen and carbon dioxide. Quantities in the soil indicate its fertility. Soils lacking clay and organic matter cannot hold water near the surface. Undisturbed forest soils can absorb 5 inches of rainfall each hour it rains, whereas cultivated soil no more than 1 inch. Excessive use of fertilizers, nitrogen, various biocides can destroy organisms, such as that detritic life cycle I mentioned before. 24% of the world's land is suitable for crops. 1/5 is too cold, 1/5 too dry, 1/5 too rugged, and 1/10 bare or lacking to support crops. So that's a bit about the conservation of world's land. Protein sources in with food. There's 22 known amino acids in nature. 8 of these cannot be synthesized by the human body and need to be obtained by a protein food supply. Fat-free diets can result in vitamin deficiencies as an example of another tip. And bacteria yeast, algae, and fungi. So those micro decomposers or microorganisms, bacteria, yeast, algae, and fungi reproduce very rapidly and provide many essential amino acids. Green Revolution. This agricultural resources, land, water, fertilizer needed to support average person in the USA is 5 times more than the world's poorest nations. In the Green Revolution, intro to high-yield grain varieties on a commercial scale to many less developed countries. Within 20 years, India, they increased their crop yields, rice, wheat, cereal by 10 times on each crop. Starvation, small percentage were consuming the food. Small percentage were consuming larger amounts of food, which made more people starving. New strains of crops were needed and highly susceptible to disease. Planting and harvesting equipment were frequently unavailable. But as a success story as well, besides India, is Mexico had 90% of its wheat as high yield varieties through genetic breeding and genetic selection. Was a step in the right direction. Was not a solution to the population versus environmental problem though. Forest lands. So, there's my cat. Is that to change the battery of the camera? Forestry. Forest lands are parts of watersheds which release water slowly and prevent flooding, and they contain minerals in the soil: calcium, potassium, nitrate. When deforested, they require a fertilization program to renew the sustained yield, which is the best, and having a timber harvest plan when you do forestry is the best, allowing different portions of forest to grow up. and others to be harvested. Biomass for energy. Burning wood, livestock manure, crop remains, food processing wastes, organic plants and other organic waste materials, but not fossil fuels. A interesting one of biomass conversion I found interesting was terrestrial and aquatic energy farms for producing fast-growing vegetation such as eucalyptus trees, sycamore trees, or large kelp can also provide fuel. Power production burning waste. That's another. So I'll just say the aquatic energy for fast was my favorite biomass. Terrestrial. Now another one is power production burning waste in councils and governments. Burning waste need to be treated first through pyrolysis, which means no oxygen in the environment. Heated up in no oxygen. For waste, heated in an oxygen-free environment. The heat produced released gas and energy is recovered. The sludge left over can be used for fertilizer. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more. See you next time.